This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, Erev Tov, good evening, everyone. Tonight we are going to continue with the Gemara Masechet Brachot, Daf Kaftet 29A. Last time, just to give us a quick running start, last time we spoke about the Amidah, the weekday Amidah has 18 brachot, and we asked, what do those 18 brachot correspond to? We said that when someone wants to say a bracha, especially when we're speaking to Hashem, praying to Hashem, you almost need to get permission or follow something or someone in order to be able to do it. Why? Like, as we said, the story that we said was there was someone who got up in the Bet Knesset and started praising Hashem, and he said, the great, the powerful, the almighty, the this, the that. And then once he finished his list, so the rabbi sitting there said, well, you're done? You're done with praises of Hashem? All you have is 10 words? You don't have more? Meaning, once you open your mouth, sometimes less is more. Once you open your mouth, you have to be careful that maybe you should actually give some more. You should give some more compliments that you're not giving. It's like someone goes to his wife and he says, "What was my example last time? Do you remember?" Yeah. I said he says to him "Wow, oh, they made a whole this is my example. They give a whole big dinner dish, make it 4-course meal, 5-course meal. She made appetizers, she made drinks, she had this, she had a dessert, she had this." And then all of a sudden you say "Wow, I like how you made your rice." Something like that, made by rice. That was the thing that I didn't spend any time on. That's what you're complimenting. So you have to be careful once you start opening your mouth. So in the spirit of that, when we're going to pray to Hashem in 18 brachot, yeah?
Prayers, please praise Hashem. Never enough.
Correct. Yeah, that's exactly the point. When you're praising Hashem, we don't come up with our own thing. The Gemara tells us that we say Ha'el HaGadol HaGibor V'Hanora because Moshe Rabbeinu said Ha'el HaGadol HaGibor V'Hanora. Moshe said it, so we say it. So then, yeah, you're right. We're talking about the Amidah. With respect to the Amidah. Okay. This is like what we say in the Kaddish, where we say, should be praised. You say all of this about Hashem, and then the next line you say, Le'ela min kol berchata. He is even above any bracha. Le'ela min kol berchata, shirata, tishbechata, v'nechamata. Greater than any bracha or song or praise or anything. So there's this balance. You're right, that when you say the praise, you also have to acknowledge that I might not be saying everything. Okay? So with that in mind, whenever the Chachamim were going to establish the Amidah, we're going to establish the Amidah, they decided that they wanted to find the number of brachot. They wanted to find it somewhere to give them a go-ahead and a green light to do it. So they found it from David HaMelech, a parak in Tehillim, chapter 29. It had 18 mentions of the name of Hashem, so we have 18 brachot. And then there was a 19th mention of Hashem with the word El, so that gave them the permission, so to speak, to add the 19th bracha when they felt it was fitting. And then there was other things as well. The Shema Yisrael has the name of Hashem or Elokeinu 18 times, and the word Echad is the 19th time. Or in the body, what we were saying is that there's 18 bones, and then there's a very small 19th bone, so that they found these things in nature and they use them to correspond to the blessings. What our Gemara is going to pick up from is saying, okay, you explained to me how we got to 18 and 19. What about the other tefillot like Shabbat? So let's go ahead and share screen. I'm on Gemara Masechet Brachot, Daf Kaftet Amud Aleph 29A. If you're looking at the art scroll, it's going to pick up from 29A1, the very last break, honey. Okay, so I'm going to share screen. Let's go. Here it is. Honey. Honey Shabbat the Shabbat keneged me. Remember when we asked this chapter of Mizmor David, let me get the source and let me condense this like that. Okay, do you remember this? Where we said this has the name of Hashem 18 times. You guys remember that? Here, I'll do it one more time because we'll use it right now. Mizmor David, Hashem, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. I missed one. Where is it? Okay, so that's 18 Berachot. But then there's also one more reference to the name of Hashem, and that is El HaKavod Hirim. Let me backspace that. El HaKavod Hirim, that's another name of God. So that's 18. So now the Gemara is going to say, what about Shabbat, where we have 17, where we have 7 Berachot? So it's going to say is there are 7 kolot in the same mizmor. The word kol. Kol Adonai Alamayim. Kol Adonai Bakoach. Kol Adonai Behadar. Kol Adonai Shover Azim. Vaishaber Adonai Terazeh Lebanon. Kol Adonai Bamidbar. Kol. Is that it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Where is it? Okay. Kol Adonai Chutzev Lahavot Esh. 7 kolot. So you have 7 times the word kol, which is a voice. There were 7 voices. This chapter has to do with Matan Torah. And this chapter says the name of Hashem 18 times. 18 Hashem. And then you have a 19th of the word El, which gave them the +1, gave them the permission to add a 19th bracha. Plus you have 7 voices of God. So these 7 voices, which was we heard at Matan Torah that David HaMelech writes about, we use that for the 7 brachot of Shabbat, because Chazal tell us that actually Matan Torah was on Shabbat. So once again, you're finding a correspondence in this chapter. In this chapter specifically, written by David HaMelech, he was the model for us. David HaMelech was the model for us of how to set up our tefillot. And he said the name of Hashem 18 times with a 19th edition. So we have an Amidah of 18 brachot with a 19th edition. And it also has 7 voices, 7 kolot. And those 7 voices is what we use when we are on Shabbat. Let's go ahead and see the Gemara saying that. Here we go. How do I stop? 29A1 in the last paragraph. Hani Sheva de Shabbata keneged mi? Amar Rabbi Chalafta bar Shmuel keneged Shiva kolot she'amar David alamayim. Corresponding to the 7 voices of the voices of God that David HaMelech writes in this paragraph. That's our correspondence for Shabbat. Okay, you get the gist at this point. What about 9? Hani Tesha de Rosh Hashanah, because it's another thing. On Rosh Hashanah, Yom Tov is all 7. Shabbat and Yom Tov is all 7. They all have 7 brachot. Musaf has 7. What about Rosh Hashanah, which has the Musaf, has 9. Hani Teshu de Rosh Hashanah keneged mi? Amar Rabbi Yitzchak Tamin Kartegin keneged Tish'a Askarot she'amar Chana betfilata. It uses the name of Hashem 9 times when Chana prays to Hashem after she had her son Shmuel. D'amar mar beRosh Hashanah nifkeda Sarah Rachel v'Chana. Amazing. The Gemara tells us that on Rosh Hashanah, not only is it decided whether we have life or not, not only is it decided whether we have parnasah or not, but also the decision of if someone is going to have a child or not gets decided on Rosh Hashanah. Fertility on Rosh Hashanah. So Chana for many years was barren. She could not have a child. She had a co-wife, Penina. You know the story of Elkanah? Elkanah was a Navi. He was a prophet. Elkanah, the prophet, had 2 wives, Chana and Penina. With his wife Penina, he had many children. His wife Chana, he didn't have any children. And she was heartbroken. She always prayed and she always wanted. And Elkanah would say, honey, I love you more than anything. Like, we're good together. But Elkanah didn't feel the same pain that she felt because she was childless. He wasn't. So, yeah, exactly. So what happened is that she went to the Mishkan. We're going to learn about this. She went to the Mishkan where the Kohen Gadol was named Eli. Eli with an ayin. Not like Eli Eliyahu, but Eli with an ayin was his name. He was the Kohen Gadol. Chana comes there. She's brokenhearted and she's praying to Hashem and she's saying, Hashem, please help me to have a child. And she's moving her lips, but no sound comes out. And as she's praying to Hashem, Eli comes to her and says, you drunken lady, this is not a place to get drunk. Get out of here. You're coming here. You're moving your lips. You're not talking. She says, I'm not drunk. I'm brokenhearted. I want a child. So Eli, who accused her wrongly. When he realizes he made a mistake, he gave her a bracha to have a child, and so it was. She had a child, and she names that child Shmuel because he is borrowed from God. Shmuel coming from the word Shaul, which means borrowed. What does that mean? She had him, and as soon as she had him, she raised him a little bit. Then she brought him back to the Mishkan and said, Shmuel is going to work here. He's going to be Eli's apprentice. And so it was. He worked in the Mishkan with Eli, and he became his apprentice until eventually he became a prophet. And this is Shmuel. He became one of the greatest prophets. Moshe ve'Aharon v'choanav, u'Shmuel v'korei shemo. Shmuel became a prophet to the same caliber and level of Moshe and Aaron. Okay, whatever. Now, obviously, Moshe Rabbeinu was on a highest level that no one was like him, but to that high level, Shmuel was the one who inaugurated the king of Shaul HaMelech, the first king of Israel, also David HaMelech, very important character in Am Yisrael. So his mother Chana was heartbroken. She prayed to Hashem. She had a child, and then she prayed. And her prayer, we learn a lot about prayer from her. She was a prophetess. She was one of the 7 female prophets. So in her tefillah, she uses the name of Hashem 9 times, and Chachamim tell us that she received that verdict of conceiving a child on Rosh Hashanah. So on Rosh Hashanah, we go to the prayer of Chana and see she brought Hashem's name 9 times. So we have 9 Berachot in our Musaf. Does anyone remember what are the 3 extra Berachot, the sections of the 3 Berachot, what are they called?
Malchiyot, Zichronot, Shofarot.
Malchiyot, Zichronot, and Shofarot. Very good. Malchiyot is mentioning kingship, that God is king. Zichronot is the remembering that God doesn't forget anything. And Shofarot, that we do all of this with the mitzvah of Shofar. Okay, so we're not going to go through it, but here, let me just share. You guys want to go through the 9? Honestly, I didn't do it yet. And I don't want to all of a sudden find out that there's less than 9. Where does the art scroll quote? Where do you have these 9? Anyone know? Starting in verse 1 through 10 of chapter 2. Should we do it? Yeah, let's just do it. Why not? Okay, hold on. But I want to be able to see 1 through 10 in one screen, so let me do that. Okay. 1 through 10. Let's go. Let's find the names of Hashem. Green. Alatz Levi Badonai, Ramakani Badonai. In Kadosh Kadonai, Ki Yemedach Menser Keeloheinu. I'm going to count Eloheinu, I think. Deot Adonai, Seveim Balechim Niskaru, Yalada Shiv'a, Radav Umlala, Adonai Yemit Umchaye, Morid Shoveyal, Adonai Morid Shumashir, Mashir Afmarom, Mekim Afardal, Mashir Levidana, Kil Adonai Metzuken, okay, someone counting? V'yarem Kerem Yeshicho. I got 10? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and you needed this Eloheinu. Okay, there you go. So it has the name of Hashem. Wait, what did I say? 10. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I'm going to erase this one. That I'm assuming that that's not being used. So that's 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That gives me the 9 Berachot that we say on Rosh Hashanah, because Chana says the name of Hashem 9 times. So too, corresponding to that, the woman who was remembered on Rosh Hashanah used 9 in this Berachah. And we learned, by the way, we learned a lot from this. We're going to come up to it in another 2 daf. We're going to learn more about this. Okay? Let's clear this up. Let's go back to the Gemara. Here we are. Let's go. Oh, and by the way, also Sarah, who was barren, she was remembered on Rosh Hashanah. Rachel, who was barren, was remembered on Rosh Hashanah, and Chana was. Okay? Hani esrim ve'arba. Eta anita keneged mi. There's one last type of Amidah, and that is on a fast day. Who was with us when we learned Masechet Ta'anit? Real OG. That was the first Masechet we did. Oh yeah, you're right, Megillah. No, not real OG. A little bit OG, but you're the only one. So, right? No one was here. Who is that? Oh, Itai. Oh, yeah. Itai. Okay, very good. So when we learned Masechet Ta'anit, we learned that they when there was no rain, they would decide to increase the severity over time. They first started doing fasts just from the day, not from the night. and then they would increase, and they would do Monday, Thursday, Monday, and then they would have another series, and then they would add a little bit more. They would start fasting from the night, and then they would take off leather shoes, and they would have this. And when it would be very intense, they would have a prayer on the fast day, the intense fast day, with 24 berachot. So that's the only option we have left. Meaning, we have 18 weekday, you have 7 for Shabbat and Yom Tov, you have 9 on Rosh Hashanah, and you have 24. When I say 24, it's really 18 plus an additional 6. They added 6 more brachot. So where do you have that? Tani Esrim ve'arba Tani Takeneged Mi. So the Gemara asks, where do we find an instance of 24 that we use as a model for setting up the fast day Amidah? Amar Rabbi Chelbo, Keneged Esrim ve'arba Renanot, Shamar Shlomo b'sha'a she'echnis Aaron levet kodshei hakodashim. What happened? Shlomo HaMelech brought the Aaron, the Ark of the Covenant, the Aaron Brit Kodesh, the Aaron Brit. He was bringing it into the Beit HaMikdash, into the Holy of Holies, Kodesh Kodashim, and as he did that, he used expressions of Renanot, which is Tefillah, Techina, Rina, these expressions of supplications and asking God for something. It says 24 instances of that, and therefore, because he said 24 instances of that when he was bringing the Aaron Kodesh into the Beit HaMikdash, Beit Kodshei HaKodashim, we do that on fast day. So the Gemara says, if that's the case, why don't we do this every day? If Shlomo HaMelech used 24, what does that have to do with the fast day? He went into the Beit HaMikdash with the Aaron, and he used 24 references to God or supplications to God, so why don't we do that? So Eimat Amrinu Shlomo, the Gemara answers, when did Shlomo say this? Biyomad Rachamim, on a very unique day when we needed special Rachamim from Hashem. Why? As Rashi explains, because he was unsuccessful. He wanted to take the Aaron in and he wasn't able to do it. They were unsuccessful, the doors were closed, and it was like a very pressing need on that day, and he prayed for it. So Ananami Biyomad Rachamim Amrinan Lahu, us too, on a very pressing day, on a day that's not a normal day, then we have something extra. That's the 24 brachot. We don't practically we don't do this anymore because we don't do these taniyot. There's a lot of discussion about it, but we don't do them anymore. But in the event that there's a very pressing need, like a situation where they're inaugurating the Beit HaMikdash or bringing the Aaron to the Beit HaMikdash, or there was a drought and Am Yisrael needed rain and we needed to have special taniyot, then you go with the quote nuclear option and you do all 24. Okay, very good. So quick summary: what is our model, our precedent for 18 brachot during the week? 18 names of Hashem in the Mizmor of David, chapter 29. Okay, Shema Yisrael has. Yeah. Oh yeah. This is the chapter of Kaftet. Yeah, very good. That's not going to be easy to remember. Very good. It's Perek Kaftet. Andrew is saying, how do you know which chapter it is? It's Perek Kaftet, and it's quoted on Gemara Masechet Brachot, Daf Kaftet 29. Chapter 29, quoted on page 29. Very good. Okay, nice. It's a nice way to remember that. Yeah, but the problem is if you don't know what page you're on, then you don't know what chapter you're on either. You might say, it's chapter 30 because it's on page 30. Or chapter 400. Okay. Anyway, so that's the one. The second one, Ilan said, Shema Yisrael has 18 references to the name of Hashem, or there are 18 vertebrae in our back, as we spoke about last time. We added, Rabban Gamliel and Yavne added a 19th bracha of Laminim Lamashinim. What is the 19th in each of these three answers? What is the 19th of Perek Kaftet? El HaKavod Yirim. What is the 19th of Shema Yisrael? Echad, one, because that the reference of God being one, there's none other like that. And what is the 19th in the back? The loose bone. Very good. It's like an extra bone that we have in the back. Okay, good. So we did the weekdays, 18 plus 1. Shabbat, 7. Where do we get that from?
Sheva kolot.
There are Shiva kolot, 7 voices of God in the same chapter 29 of David HaMelech. Like that's the real answer. That chapter is used in many ways. I also mentioned to you the Gemara elsewhere in Rosh Hashanah uses this as building the entire Amidah. So it's for example, what's the last reference? Here, think about this. What's the last reference in that chapter 29 of the name of Hashem? Adonai Oz La'amo Yiten Adonai yevarech et amo v'shalom. What's the last of the brachot? Sim shalom. There's a lot of correspondence between this bracha and David HaMelech. This was David HaMelech's. We use this as a model for the Amidah. So you have 7 kolot in there. That has to talk about Matan Torah. Torah was given on Shabbat, so we have 7 kolot. What about the 9 of Rosh Hashanah? Chana, you have the name of Yud K Vav K, the name of Hashem, not Elokeinu, because we saw we had Elokeinu. We don't include that. And then what about the 24 of fast days? There are 24 expressions of renanot, of supplications, when Shlomo HaMelech brought the Aron into the Bet Kodesh HaKodashim. Okay, very good. That's not Tehillim. No, that's not Tehillim.
What's wrong with this?
That's in Sefer Melachim. So Sefer Melachim. Yeah, it's in the Nevi'im, exactly. Sefer Melachim, chapter 8, lines 22 to 53. We're not going to go through it now. That's your homework. Rama, later you go through it, take out your highlighter, highlight 24 times, and then send the picture to the chat. Okay, here we go. Yeah, Rama, I'm using AI right now to transcribe everything. So on the to-do list, there's going to be a to-do list for Rama. Rama is spelled R-A-M-A. Give him a to-do list that he has to find the 24 references of supplication in Shlomo HaMelech's chapter. Okay, next. Do you remember we said in our Mishnah, we're moving on to the next part of the Gemara. In our Mishnah, there was a machloket between Rabban Gamliel and Rabbi Yeshua on what we're supposed to do every day with the Amidah. Rabban Gamliel says every day you got to pray the whole 18. You got to pray the whole Amidah the way we do now. Rabbi Yeshua says, Me'en Shemona Esrei. You don't have to do the full thing. You could do a mini version of it. Me'en means something like it, something shorter. So what was Rabbi Yeshua talking about when he said you don't have to do the full 18, but you could do a mini 18, an abridged version? My Me'en Shemona Esrei. What is he referring to when he says he can do an abridged version of the 18 brachot? Machloket, Rav and Shmuel. Rav says, Me'en kol bracha u'bracha, to have a mini version of each bracha. What does that mean? Ata chonen la'adam da'at, baruch Hashem chonen la'ada'at. Ashiver Havinenu Toratecha, baruch Hashem rotzeh b'tshuva. Sulech alon ha'miki hatan, baruch Hashem sulech hanun be'listoach. Say the shortened version of it. Say the first 3-4 words and then say Baruch Ata Hashem. So according to Rav, okay, you follow in our Mishnah, machloket between Rabban Gamliel and Rabbi Yeshua, what a person is supposed to do every day. But do you guys remember what was the third opinion? I probably should go back to show you the Mishnah. There's 3 opinions. Rabban Gamliel says every day you have to do the full 18. Rabbi Yeshua says, Me'en Shemon Esrei, meaning a bridge version of 18. What did Rabbi Akiva in the middle say? If someone is fluent in the 18, he should say the 18. If he's not fluent in the 18, then he can say the abridged version of it. So Rabbi Akiva sort of says it depends on the person. So now, when Rabbi Yeshua tells us you got to do, you could do an abridged version, a shortened version of it, we want to know what is he talking about. So the first explanation is basically just say the first couple words and the Baruch Ata Hashem. So how many brachot are you saying at the end? You're saying a full 18. It's just that you're condensing it. You're saying Ata chonen adam da'at, Baruch Ata Hashem chonen da'at. Okay? Shema kolenu Hashem Elokeinu, Baruch Ata Hashem shomea tefillah. Like this. Shmuel says no. Shmuel says you're actually going to, in the middle, you're going to make it one bracha. Now look at this masterpiece that Shmuel is going to write for us. It's called Havinenu. Havinenu is going to have 2 or 3 words for each bracha. Are you ready? Here we go. Shmuel Amar, let me tell you what your Rabbi Yeshua means when he says in an abridged version. Havinenu Hashem Elokeinu, ladat derachecha. Hashem, give us the wisdom to understand your ways. That's atachonen. Umol ed levavenu leiratecha. Circumcise our hearts to fear you. That has to do with teshuvah. V'tislach lanu, forgive us. Lihiyot geulim, to be redeemed. That's Goel Israel. Rachachkenu mimachovenu. Remove us from our afflictions, from our pains, from our sicknesses. That's Rafa'enu. V'dashenenu binot artzecha. How do they translate this? Satisfy us with the pastures of your land. What? No, it's in order. It's in order. Say it again. Yeah, exactly. So, okay, the way Havinenu be, very good. Let me clarify. The way Shmuel says is that the first three Berachot are normal. Hashem Sivdei Tifech Ufi Hagiyatecha. You go through the first three Berachot and you say Baruch Atah Hashem Ha'el HaKadosh. Now, from Atah Chonen all the way until Retzeh Shema Kolenu, you're now going to take this and you're going to say 3 words, 4 words, 5 words for each bracha. 2 words for each bracha. Atah Chonen Adam Dat becomes Havinenu. Let's see how they translate it. Okay, I'm going to pull this up a little bit so you can say, grant us understanding. That's Atah Chonen. Lord our God, to know your ways. Sensitize our hearts so that we may revere you. That's Hashivenu. And forgive us. That's Salach Lanu. So that we may be redeemed. That's Gal Israel. Keep us far from our suffering. That's Rafa'enu. Satisfy us with the passions of your land. That's Barachenu. Gather our scattered people from the 4 corners of the earth. That's Tekah B'Shofar. And those who go astray shall be judged according to your will. This is Hashiva Shoftenu Kivarishonah, to bring our judges back. You shall raise your hand against the wicked. That's Laminim Lamalshinim. And may the righteous rejoice. May the righteous, that's Ala Tzadikim Ala Chasidim. In the rebuilding of your city and in the restoration of your sanctuary. That's Bonei Yerushalayim. The flourishing of your servant David and in establishing the light of your Mashiach, the son of Yishai. That's Et Semach David Avdecha Merat Tzmiach. And finally, before we call, you answer. Blessed are you, Hashem, who listens to prayers. That is Baruch Hashem Shomei Tefillah. I want to say it in Hebrew now. Okay, we did it. Havinenu Hashem Elokeinu adat derechecha. Hashem, help us to understand your ways. Umolet levavenu liiratecha. Sensitize our hearts to fear you. V'tislach lanu. Forgive us, liot geulim, to be redeemed. V'rachakenu mimachovenu. Heal us from all of our sicknesses. V'dashnu b'not daretzecha. Give us pasture in all of your land. Gather all of the scattered people from the 4 corners of the world. Those who are judging the wrong way should judge the right way. Take care and get rid of all of the wicked people. Righteous people should be happy with the building of your city and in the establishment and the erecting of your heicha. That's the building of Beit HaMikdash. And the sprouting forth of David your servant through the lighting of the light of the son of Yishai, which is David the son of Jesse, your anointed one. Before we call out to you, you answer. Baruch Atah Hashem Shomea Tefillah. This is Shmuel's version of a shortened version of the 18. Rav said you say each bracha from Atah Chonen and you just make it shorter. See the first couple lines and say the Baruch. First couple lines in Baruch. Havinenu Hashem and Rafeh, Baruch Hashem Rafeh Cholei Amo Yisrael. Shmuel says no, you just say one bracha with Havinenu. That's the first one. No. So you go through all of this. You could imagine how fast the Amidah will take. The Amidah, if you did this for all of the middle, as Ilan pointed out, you first still have to do the first 3 and the last 3. You would. After you say Baruch Hashem Shomei Tefillah, Retzeh Hashem Hakenu, you would go into Retzeh. But the whole Amidah would take what? Like 1 minute, 2 minutes. I know some people that already takes them 1 or 2 minutes. There's even with the whole full 18. So I don't even know. It would be like negative time. You would end up younger. When you're done with this, you'd somehow go back and down. It's like very short. Okay? Now, remember what we said. We're gonna have like machlokets within machlokets. Our Mishnah said Rabban Gamliel says say the full 18. Rabbi Yeshua says you could say an abridged version. What is the abridged version? We're not sure. There's 2 opinions. There's Rav that says 18 brachot that are 18 mini brachot, and Shmuel says no, one bracha that includes all of those things of the middle. Fine. And then Rabbi Akiva says if you know the long one, you should say the long one. If you're not so good at the long one, you should say the short one. So we already have it's a 3-way machloket, and within the 3-way machloket, the opinion of Rabbi Yeshua is a 2-way machloket. And now let's see what the commentators explain on these opinions. Look at this. Layet ale Abaye aman de metzle Havinenu. Although Shmuel said that Havinenu is Rabbi Yeshua's version, Abaye would curse anyone who recited this prayer of Havinenu. You see, there was one rabbi, Abaye, that says it seems like some people were doing this Havinenu version, very shortened, and Abaye would curse them. What does curse mean? Say like this is a wrong practice. Abaye was very strongly held against this practice. You could imagine that there were some that felt like Rabbi Yeshua, according to Shmuel, who you would have this shortened prayer of Havinenu. Abaye says, no way. Whoever does this is cursed. I want to just point out to you what Tosfot. Let's read if I could pull it up here. I like it in. Yeah, it's pretty harsh. Exactly. Yes. So why would okay? So you're right. Like, why does this deserve a curse? Why do you think? That's it. Very simple. Because people were making a joke out of the tefillah. They would come in there and they would just say the whole thing in 30 seconds. It's like, what is this? Like, enough of this. You guys are making a maschera out of this. So he felt strongly that it was being abused. Look at what Tosfot says. Tosfot says, "Lait Allah Abaye aman de matzle havinenu." Abaye would curse someone who would use this. V'achi kaimalan, and we hold like Abaye, meaning a person should not use havinenu. V'yesh sfarim de masik. Some texts have the following words: Hani mili b'mata. This is true if you're in a town and you're in a city, in a settled area. Aval baderech, but if you're traveling, share, you're allowed to say Havinenu. Kedemashma v'mechiltin gaver Rabbi Yosef, as we had in our very Gemara with Rabbi Yosef. Does anyone remember? There was a story with Rabbi Yosef. It was a rabbi in our Gemara. He went into a dilapidated building to pray. And after he finished praying, Eliyahu Navi was waiting there for him, and he said, "What are you doing there?" He said, "I want to pray." He said, why did you have to go inside there? He said, "I didn't want to pray on the road." He said, "How come you didn't use a short prayer?" It's referring to Havinenu. So the thing is, if Abaye would curse people who would do this, it'd be like, hold on a second, Abaye, like clearly there's opinions. Shmuel says this. It's not like it's a real prayer. Okay, Abaye was cursing people who were using it every single day. Someone is traveling, you need to use it in an extenuating circumstance, I understand. But people started using it every single day. Once people started using it every day, Abaye went on a campaign and started saying, don't do this. This is not the right thing to do. Don't do it in a shortened version. There are times where shortened when you're traveling, fine. But if you're not traveling, you shouldn't be using the shortened version. Okay, so that's the opinion of Abaye, and that's how we hold. We don't do Havinenu anymore. You can imagine, let's say someone is very sick. Someone doesn't have the strength. Someone is not able to. Okay, so maybe this is a situation where at least they do that. As he said, if someone is traveling and he won't be able to focus for more than 15 seconds. Okay, now we're gonna start seeing different opinions limiting when you're allowed to use Havinenu, because by using Havinenu, you might make other mistakes. So we already know this Havinenu. You guys are with me when I say Havinenu. What am I referring to when I say Havinenu? The abridged version, according to Shmuel, which is what? One bracha, jam-packed, with all of the details of all of the brachot, okay? So Abaye already put his opinion down. Abaye says, you say this, I curse you. Okay, so Abaye doesn't like it. But this is the opinion of Shmuel. Shmuel is going to say, there's limitations on when you're allowed to use it. Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Shmuel. Rav Nachman says in the name of Shmuel, Kol hashana kula mitpalel adam havinenu. A person is allowed to pray Havinenu all year round. Chutz mi motza'e Shabbat, except for coming out of Shabbat, motza'e Shabbat. What is motza'e Shabbat? Saturday nights. Why is it called motza'e Shabbat? Why is Saturday night called motza'e Shabbat? What? You're saying it. Yeah, very good. Say it again. It means to leave. Latzet means to leave Shabbat. Motza'e Shabbat means when you're leaving Shabbat. That's why it's called Motza'e Shabbat. So when you're leaving Shabbat, Saturday night, you can't say it. Ubi Motza'e Yomim Tovim. And also when you're leaving a Yom Tov, which means on the night after a Chag. Why? Because you have to say Atah Chorantanu Hashem Elokeinu. When do we say Atah Chorantanu? In the bracha of Chonen Hadat, it's inserted in the middle of the bracha. So here's what he's saying. He's saying we have an issue. I let you say Havinenu all year round, except for on a Saturday night when you need to put something extra into Chonen Hadat. then you can't say it because now you can't put something extra to Chonen Adat. So you can't do the Havdalah piece of Tachonantanu. Therefore, you can't say Havinenu. So the Gemara, before the Gemara goes to what you're saying, the Gemara says, I have a simple solution. If you don't want to mess around with the Havinenu bracha, fine. Just say a separate bracha for Tachonen, for Havdalah. Look, Matkif la Rabba bar Shmuel. So Rabba asked the following question: V'neimra bracha revi'it b'fnei atzma. I have a solution. You could still say Havinenu without touching it. Still say Havinenu. What about Havdalah? So say it right before you do Havinenu. Say a bracha of Havdalah. What if you just do a separate bracha? Rabbi Akiva Omer. Actually, I'm not making this up. Didn't Rabbi Akiva say this? What is the opinion of Rabbi Akiva? Omra bracha revi'it b'fnei atzma. Actually, it's a machloket. One opinion says you should say it in atah chonen l'adam da'at, which is how we hold. Rabbi Akiva says, don't put it in atah chonen. Say it as its own bracha. Rabbi Eliezer Omer b'hoda'at. Rabbi Eliezer is another opinion that says put it as part of modim. Thank Hashem that we have Shabbat. Okay? So Rabbi Akiva's opinion is make it its own bracha. So the Gemara says, hold on a second. We don't hold that way. Atu kol hashana kula, for the rest of the year. Mi avdinan ke Rabbi Akiva. Do we hold like Rabbi Akiva to make it its own unique bracha? Dehashta nami navet, so that now on a Saturday night when you're saying Havinenu, you should make it its own bracha. We don't do that. Kol hashana kula. My tama lo avdinan ke Rabbi Akiva. Why don't we add a bracha on Saturday nights like the opinion of Rabbi Akiva? Tamni sarei takun, because we have only 18. We have 18 Berachot in the Amidah, and we're not going to give an extra one just because it's Havdalah. Tishasre lo takun. They didn't establish 19. Hachanami sheva takun, tamni lo takun. Also, when it comes to using Havinenu on a Saturday night, you can't add Havdalah as its own bracha, because that would be an 8th bracha. Havinenu is 7 brachot. Remember, 3 at the beginning, 3 in the middle, at the end, and 1 Havinenu in the middle. You can't say this on a Saturday night, because if you would add an extra atah chonen bracha of its own as a 4th bracha, you would have 8 total, and we don't have 8. Okay, what should be the next logical idea? Just stick it into Havinenu, right? So atah chonen adam dat Havinenu Hashem Elokeinu v'amavdil ben kodesh v'chol, whatever. Just add it as a phrase. So that's what the Gemara is going to ask. Matkif la Ramar Zutra v'nichlela michla. So just include it within the abridged Havinenu bracha. Havinenu Hashem Elokeinu hamavdil ben kodesh v'chol. Hashem, help us to have knowledge. You who separates between holy and profane, a weekday and a holy day. So Gemara says, Kasha, you're right, it's a good question. I don't have an answer. Kasha. The word, when the Gemara says Kasha, the Gemara is saying, good question, I don't have an answer. However, there's another expression when you have a good question that you don't have an answer. Not teku. Teku means let's not address this. We're gonna leave this unaddressed. Kasha means I can't answer this question. It's difficult. But there's another expression for when you can't answer the question, and that is called tiyuvta. Tiyuvta means it's a refutation. It's a rejection. You're rejecting this ruling. Okay? So comes Shmuel and says, hey, you could do Havinenu all year round, but you can't do it on Saturday nights. Why not? You can't do it on Saturday nights because what are you going to do with Havdalah? So the Gemara says, put it in Havinenu. You're like, good point. I don't know. So now, does that mean Shmuel is wrong? When Shmuel said you can't do it on a Saturday night, is the Gemara telling us you can do it on a Saturday night? Because when the Gemara suggested you just insert it in Havinenu, the Gemara's response is, yeah, but I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. So the sensitivity of the word here, since it uses the word kashya, meaning it's a good question, but there's an answer. Whereas if it uses the word tiyuvta, that means it's a refutation. So there is an answer to this question. There is an answer, and I'll share one answer with you. You have a question or? What? Say it again. So in the Amidah on a Saturday night, we have to insert Havdalah. Okay, we have to insert Havdalah in the Amidah. And on a normal Saturday night, we do it within the bracha of Atah Chonen Adam Dat. You give us wisdom to understand. Within that bracha, you say, and you help us, give us the wisdom to distinguish between a weekday and Shabbat. Now, when we go to Havinenu, you're taking like 2 words per blessing. 1, 2, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And it's like, I don't know how to deal with Atah Chonen Adam Dat all of a sudden, because I only have 2 words to work with. So the Gemara just says, just add it. Just say, Hamavdim ben Kodesh Techol. And the Gemara says, yeah, good question. I don't know. I don't have an answer for you. Okay, did that answer your question or no?
No. We don't say Arby, we don't say
Okay, so we're gonna see later on that, let's say someone prayed Arvit and forgot to say Atah Chonen, meaning he forgot to do Havdalah within the Amidah. The Gemara says it's okay. He doesn't need to repeat because you could do it with the cup. So what we're learning is you can do Havdalah with a cup of wine. So it's not that Arvit is the only way to do Havdalah. You could do the other way. However, Arvit is established to say Havdalah within it. So when you are thinking about doing something, you have to do it with its full establishments. You can't say, I'm just going to forget about it, because it's established to have it within there. You're right if I forget or if I don't get to pray. You know when this happens, there's some countries, like very, very north, like in Russia, where the sun sets at 2 a.m. People go to sleep. They go to sleep before you could do Havdalah. Like, imagine I told you have to wait up until 2 a.m. to do Havdalah. Daniel, I know you're awake at that time, but us old people were not up at 2 a.m. So if the sun only sets after 2 a.m., which some places that are very north, like in Russia, very, very north, Saturday night, Shabbat ends at 2 a.m., no one is praying Arvit, no one is doing Havdalah. So you know what they do? They wake up Sunday morning, they make the French toast, and they say, Hamavdil ben Kodesh Lechol. They say Havdalah on wine. You say, Borei Pri Hagefen, Hamavdil ben Kodesh Lechol. You don't do Esh, and you also don't do Bisamin. But you do those 2 brachot. In some places, that's all they do. So in that situation, they're not praying Arvit. And what are you doing? You're doing it the next morning as part of Havdalah. You're just taking it separately as Havdalah. You don't do it in Shacharit Tefillah of Atah Chonen. You don't do it in the Shacharit. That's it. You don't say it after. You missed Havdalah. You missed Havdalah in the Amidah. But that's what we're dealing with here is, according to the opinion that you're allowed to use Havinenu. Remember, are you allowed to use Havinenu according to Abaye? Abaye would curse someone who would do it. Shmuel tells us that this is the opinion of Rabbi Yeshua, that you could do Havinenu. So what Shmuel is saying is, but you're not allowed to do it on Saturday night because you lose the Havdalah. So the Gemara says, why do I lose it? Just stick it in there. The Gemara says, good question. Here's the answer that Talmidei Rabbeinu Yonah said. Talmidei Rabbeinu Yonah says because of reverse engineering. Remember what I just told you, that there's an opinion of Rabbi Akiva that Havdalah is its own bracha. On a Saturday night, the opinion of Rabbi Akiva is not that you put it in Atah Chonen, but that it's its own bracha. So on a Saturday night, according to Rabbi Akiva, your Amidah actually has 20 brachot. So here's what we're concerned about. If you make Havinenu, which has 2 words per bracha, 2 words for Atah Chonen, 2 words for Rafa'enu, 2 words for Berachot, and then you go and you put in 2 words for Havdalah, you know what you're going to think? It's its own bracha. Like the opinion of Rabbi Akiva. Because every single phrase here is its own bracha. So when you have Havinenu, if you include the words of Hamavdil ben Kodesh Lechol, reverse engineering, you're going to say, well, that must be, we hold like Rabbi Akiva, that Havdalah is its own bracha. And it's not like that. So we're afraid to include Havdalah as its own bracha within the Havinenu. And that's why Shmuel, who's of the opinion that Rabbi Yeshua holds that you could say Havinenu, he says, but you can't do Havinenu on Saturday nights or on Motzei Yom Tov. Good? Was that confusing? Well, no. So according to Rabbi Akiva, you only add extra bracha on Saturday nights. According to Rabbi Akiva, every Saturday night you have an extra bracha, and every Motzei Yom Tov you have an extra bracha. Do we hold like Rabbi Akiva? someone who reads this Havinenu is going to say, yeah, we hold like Rabbi Akiva, and we don't want to go there. So that's why Shmuel says we don't do it on Saturday nights. Yeah.
If that's certain, why don't they just like remove Kohen from Havinenu and then say like the full bracha regularly with Havdalah in it, and then say the rest of Havinenu. Then you won't have that issue.
So you're saying, say atachonen with atachonantanu, and then do, okay, very good. But this using Havinenu is using 7 brachot. Like when you do Havinenu, the way it's established is this bracha. We're not going to start chopping and giving you the option to, you know what, I like the bracha of Rafayinu, so I'm going to take that one out and say the full thing, and everything else is going to be abridged. Like, no. You either have one bracha of Shomea Tefillah that has all of the things in there, or you do all of them. But we're not going to let you pick and choose and make some abridged and some not. So it's actually a good, you're like siphoning out atachonen adam da'at with atachonantanu. So on a regular Saturday night, which is what we do in the full thing, but that's not the establishment of Havinenu. That's not the text of Havinenu. Actually, Havinenu is the bracha of atachonen. Like, it would be another bracha, and there's no such establishment. We don't make up our own brachot. But it's a very good thought. It would solve the issue. Okay, good. Let's keep going. Share screen. Okay, now this is going to be amazing because we're going to have another time when you cannot use Havinenu. So this is amazing. There's an opinion that says, hey, you can use Havinenu, fine. But don't use it on Saturday nights, okay? Don't use it on coming out of Yom Tov, okay? Now we have another one. Amar Rabbi bar Abaye, Rabbi bar Abaye tells us, Kol hashana kulam mitpalal adam Havinenu. All year round, you're allowed to say Havinenu, chutz miyamot hagishamim, except for the winter. What? Except for the months that we say Barach Aleinu. Why? Because you need to say the phrase of the 10 tal umatar livracha. So Sfaradim and Ashkenazim do this a little bit different. Sfaradim, during the summer months, we say Barachenu, and during the winter months, we say Barech Aleinu. But the truth is, that's not, those two words, it's not the key change. The key change between Barachenu and Barech Aleinu is, when we say Barech Aleinu, we add these 4 words of Veten, Tal, Umatar, Livracha. God, please give us rain. We're asking for rain. Whereas when we say Barachenu, we don't ask for rain. So the real key difference between these two brachot is that during the winter months, we say Veten, Tal, Umatar, Livracha, please give us rain. Okay? So following the same type of logic, this opinion says, you know, the last opinion says you could say Havinenu on any night except for on a Saturday night because you need to put something extra. Don't say it. So what he's saying is you could say it on any day and any night except for when you say Barach Aleinu, because you have to add in this extra line of V'ten Tal Umatar Livracha. Don't say it. So that cuts out half the year. So half the year we're saying this Barach Aleinu, or it's not a little bit less than half the year. But that's what he's saying. For the winter months, we don't say Havinenu. Now the Gemara asks why. So let's follow this flow. Because a person has to request in the bracha, Berachot Hashanim, he needs to say V'ten Tal Umatar Livracha. Matkif Lamar Zutra, so Mar Zutra asks the same question. V'nichlela michlal. Just include it. What's so hard? In the middle of Havinenu, add the words V'dashanenu binot artzecha. V'ten tal umatar, and you give rain. Please give rain. Just add those words. V'ten tal umatar. Why is that an issue? The Gemara answers, amazing answer, some psychology here. Ati le'itrudeh, because you're gonna mess up. Remember, they don't have sidurim. Havinenu is the shortened version. If I tell you to start inserting things into this bracha, you're gonna get confused. So we don't want you to have different versions of Havinenu. We want it to be one version of Havinenu. Does anyone here know the bracha of Asher Yatzar by heart? Okay? Imagine if you know Asher Yatzar by heart. Okay? Imagine if I told you, and by the way, after word number 42, you need to add a phrase and then keep going. You know what's going to happen? Right in the middle, you're going to get stuck. Don't mess around with the bracha. There's a bracha. During the winter months, now you add extra words. You know what's going to happen? I'm going to completely lose it altogether. We don't want to touch these brachot. And you know what this happens when people, let's say, for example, they have to say ala mechia. Some people know the bracha. If you eat cookies afterwards, you say ala mechia. Some people know it by heart. But then all of a sudden, it's Yom Tov, and you have to say v'samchenu v'yom chag hasukot hazeh. People get confused, and then people are stuck right over there in the middle. They did the first half, and they never made it to the end. Don't start putting things in the middle. So the Gemara, it's amazing, okay? Because the Gemara asked Havdalah, why don't we just put in an extra phrase of Havdalah? And the Gemara said, good question. Fine. Then we say, why don't we just put an extra phrase by Baruch? What does the Gemara say? Oh, you're going to get confused if you add extra. So, why doesn't the Gemara use that same rejection for Atachonen, right? For Havdalah, we said, hey, you can't say it on Saturday nights. You can't say it during the winter. Why can't I say it on Saturday nights? Because you have to put an of Havdalah. Why can't you say it during the winter? Because you have to say V'ten tel matar. Okay? Now, why can't I say V'ten tel matar as a phrase? You're going to get confused. Why can't I say Havdalah as a phrase? I don't know. Good question. I don't have an answer for you. The Gemara says, why don't you just say the same thing? Because you're going to get confused by adding that extra phrase of Havdalah. Why? The Gemara says, why don't you do that? Ihachi Havdalah b'chonen adat. Why don't we add a phrase of Havdalah b'chonen adat in Havinenu? Nami ati le'itudeh. You could simply say, you'll make that mistake. So the Gemara answers, Amri hatam kevan da'atia v'tchilat salota. Because adding it is at the beginning. Lo mitrad, you're not going to make a mistake. If I tell you that, when you start the Beracha of Havinenu, right away say Havdalah and then continue, you'll be able to do that. But when it comes to Barach Aleinu, to say V'ten tel matar, it's like right smack dab in the middle, you're going to get stuck, mitrid, you're going to make a mistake. Therefore, we don't want you to mess by saying V'ten tel matar Beracha in the middle, so don't say during the winter months. The reason is you're going to get confused. We also don't want you to include Havdalah. Why? It's not because you're going to get confused, so we don't have an answer. And as I explained, an answer could be because you're going to reverse engineer. Yes, question. Say it again. Don't we request by Mashiva Ruach? Maria, I guess, yes. Sorry, what's...
We need to mention it.
Oh, no, that's not request. Okay, so there's a big difference between mazkirin geberot geshamim. So Andrew's question.
Like when you do mention it, you are requesting it?
No, because we don't have the same date. That's, in fact, what the Gemara tells us. Okay, so Andrew's question is, in the situation where it's during the winter months, remember your first three brachot are the same, so you're saying Mashiva Aruch Merida Geshem, so shouldn't that count for something? The answer is no. If you say Mashiva Aruch Merida Geshem, but you don't say V'ten tel matar lebracha, guess what? You're going to have to go back. You have to repeat the Amidah. Why? Because Mashiva Aruch Merida Geshem is mentioning. V'ten tel matar lebracha is requesting. And this is what the Gemara tells us. The Gemara says that there are times for mentioning without requesting. For example, on Shemini Atzeret, we don't want to request rain yet because people have to travel to go home. We mention it because it's the right season for mentioning, but we're not going to request it. We only start requesting it 7th of Cheshvan or outside in Bavel, 60 days after the autumnal equinox, which is December 4th in the evening. But requesting is very different. Once we hit December 4th, if you say Barachenu, and you don't say V'ten tel matar, even though you said Mashiva Aruch Merida Geshem, you finish every day, you have to go back and say it again. This is what we're going to end up learning, and we're going to see that tonight as well, hopefully. Okay, very good. Let's keep going. I know there's a lot of things that we're going back and forth here, but let's just get through this. Here we go. Let's keep going. All right. Here's what we're trying to figure out. During winter months, I want to say Havinenu, but I can't say Havinenu because I have to have this extra phrase of V'ten tel matar lebracha. So, question number one, why don't you just say it as an extra phrase in Havinenu? What did the Gemara answer? Not that it's going to be an extra blessing, no. Yeah, because you're going to get confused by the extra phrase. The extra blessing is what Rabbi Yeshua says about Havdalah. if you say Havdalah, because you're going to think we hold like Rabbi Akiva, who says it's his own bracha. But when it comes to the 10 talamata requesting rain, it's not that we'll think it's an extra blessing, it's that we'll get confused in the middle and you get stuck. So the Gemara says, fine. So say it at the end of the bracha. Imagine when you say the whole Havinenu, get yourself through the whole thing, just the last two words, say v'ten talamatar. Now it's a lot easier because you're not going to get stuck. Because if we tell you add it at the end, it's a lot easier. So that's what the Gemara says. Why don't you say it at the very end of the bracha, as we can also say it in Shomea Tefillah? The Amar Rabbi Tanchum Rabbi Aseh. Because Rabbi Aseh tells us, Ta'av elo hizkir, Gevorot Geshamim T'chiat HaMeitim. If someone does not mention Mashiv Aruach U'Merida Geshem during a season that they should, Machzirin Oto. You have to go back and repeat the Amidah. By the way, this is not the halacha for Sfaradim, and I'll explain it in a second. But there's going to be three things that we talk about what happens if you forget. So let's go through the three, and we'll talk about each one. The first thing that we say, if someone forgets to say Mashiv Aruach U'Merida Geshem during the winter, the months that you're supposed to say it, Machzirin Oto, you have to go back and say the Amidah again. If someone forgets to say v'ten talamatar lebracha, which is the request for rain in the bracha Birkat Hashanim, in other words, someone forgets to say Barech Aleinu, and machzirin oto, you don't need to go back because you could add that phrase in Shomea Tefillah. And the third thing that we talk about if you forget, v'havdalah b'chonen adat. Let's say you forget to say Havdalah and Chonen Adat. You forget to mention Havdalah in the bracha of Chonen Adat, which is what we spoke about. And Machzirin Oto, you do not need to repeat it and go back. Because you could say it afterwards on the cup of wine. So you don't need to go back and repeat because you're going to catch your Havdalah. So what we just saw here is, if you forget to say Barech Aleinu, if you forget to say the phrase of v'ten talamatar lebracha, you don't need to go back because you could still catch it in Shema Kolenu. What would you say? Shema Kolenu, Hashem Elokeinu, v'ten talamatar lebracha, ki ata shomea tefillat kol peh. You say the phrase of v'ten talamatar lebracha in Shema Kolenu, then it works. So he's saying, he's coming up with a very clever solution. In Havinenu, I want to be able to say Havinenu during the winter months. But you're telling me I can't put v'ten talamatar lebracha because in the middle I'm going to get confused. So put it at the end. And I know that works because if I forget it in the middle of the Amidah, I'm allowed to say it at the end. So why don't I say it at the end of Havinenu? What is the Gemara answer? Ta'a shani. Because it's a different situation when you forgot. You are allowed to save yourself. If you forgot to say v'ten talamatar lebracha, you're allowed to save yourself by saying it in Shema Kolenu. But that doesn't mean you could plan to say it in Shema Kolenu from the beginning. Therefore, you can't say it at the end during Havinenu. I want to just show you a sidur to make sure we're all on the same page here. Okay. You know what would be cool if I could pull up the Kol Avotenu app. But whatever. All right. Look at the Amidah. I'm praying Amidah. Okay. Hashem sefezai tiftach. Ata gibor le'olam Hashem. Okay. Now here I am. Ata gibor le'olam Hashem v'chayim iti matarav v'oshia. So let's say, for example, how do I highlight? Spotlight. Stamp. Draw. Yeah, let's just, how about we stamp? Let's do some stamping here. Mashiva, no, that's not what I wanted. Mashiva Aruach U'Merida Geshem. You guys know how to highlight? Here, draw, highlighter. Let's make it yellow. Okay, so here we have this phrase of Mashiva Aruach U'Merida Geshem. We started saying this on Simchat Torah. What happens if I forget this phrase? So our Gemara told us there's three things that if you forget Mashiva Aruach U'Merida Geshem, Machzirin Oto, you got to go back. If you forget v'ten talamatar lebracha, you don't need to go back because you could say it in Shomea Tefillah. And if you forget Ata Chonen Adam Da'at, you forget Havdalah, you don't need to go back because you could say it over Havdalah. Okay? That first one, it says that if you forget Mashiva Aruach U'Merida Geshem, you need to go back. Is that the halacha? The answer is, it depends. It depends on what? Very good. It depends on if you're saying something else. You see, Sfaradim, during the summer months, we have this phrase of Morid Hata. So during the winter months, if you forget Mashiva Rucham Geshem, it's okay because you're still saying something, it's acceptable. But the Ashkenazim in their Sidurim, they don't say Morid Hata. You know what's in Ashkenazi Sidur? You know what? The cool thing is, I can pull it up right now. Clear all drawings. Let's check. Let's go back for a second. Safaria. Let's go to Tefillah. Sidur Ashkenaz. This might be the first time I've done this in my life. I don't know. I've never been here before.
So this last time, no?
Yeah, I'm joking. I'm making a joke. Yeah, exactly. No, I know how to use Ashkenazi Sidurim. I have a lot of Ashkenazi friends. Okay, so Ata Gibor Leolam Hashem Mechayem Iti Matar Rav Loshia. Guess what? This says during the winter you say that there's no Morid Hata. They don't say Morid Hata. They say Ata Gibor Mechayem Rav Loshia Mechalkel Chayim Mechesed. So for Ashkenazim, by the way, this Gemara sounds like a proof like Ashkenazim are correct. This Gemara, as this Braita, is actually a proof that their version is correct. Because what is it saying? It says, if you miss Mashiv Eruchim in the Geshem, you have to go back. Sfaradim say, no, you don't, because you're saying Morid Hata. This Braita clearly was Ashkenazi. So this is actually a proof according to them. But there's others that learn that, no, as you go back if you didn't say anything else, but if you say something else all year round, which you're allowed to, then you wouldn't need to go back. But this is, Braita is really according to the way the Ashkenazim do it. So if you miss Mashiv Eruchim in the Geshem, you gotta go back. That's the first one. Now let's go back to, I just want to see the 10 Talamatel Bracha. That's going to come up in a few more weeks. Here, look at this. How do Sfaradim do it? During the summer months, we say Barachenu. That's what we have here on top. And during the winter months, we say Barach Aleinu. And what is the key phrase? The key phrase is Beten tal umatar livracha. That's the key phrase. You see that? That's really the difference between Barachenu and Barach Aleinu. It's not about Barachenu, which means bless us. Barach Aleinu means bless unto us. It's the same thing. The key difference between these two brachot is this phrase right here of Beten tal umatar livracha. Let's see what Ashkenazim do. Our Ashkenazi brothers, or maybe there's Ashkenazi watching this on YouTube. I don't have any in the room right now. But maybe we have someone in the shiur. Let's see what the Ashkenazim do. I feel like their tefillah is much shorter. Oh, because I was looking at Shabbat, that's why. Okay. I was like, wow, I want to be Ashkenazi. Okay, here, Amidah. Let's go to Birkat Hashanim. Look how the Ashkenazim do it. Barech Aleinu Hashem Elokeinu et Hashana Zot Kol Minei Tevatel Torah V'ten Bracha. During the summer months, they just say V'ten Bracha. And during the winter months, they say V'ten Tal Umatel Bracha. Also, our Gemara sounds like the Sidur goes. This Braita sounds like the Ashkenazim. It says, if you forget this, it's fine because you could say V'ten Tal Umatel Bracha in Shema Kolinu. Like you see how just take those extra words and throw them in there. Ashkenazim and Sfaradim, for them, they know there's only one difference between winter and summer. V'ten tal umatel bracha or v'ten bracha. So what happens is, even though the Sfaradi Sidurim has the whole separate bracha, as I showed you over here, it's a whole separate bracha, but the key phrase is v'ten tal umatel bracha. What it's telling us is, let's say, once we change this, let's say, for example, you make a mistake and you forget this, and you end up in the middle of Tikah B'Shafar, you realize, I said the wrong bracha. What do? You go to Shema Kolenu, and when you're in Shema Kolenu, right over here, before you say Ki Ata Shemei Tiflat Kopeh, you simply say the 4 words. What are they? V'ten tal umatar lebracha. By saying those 4 words, you saved yourself. Yes, if you forgot. This is halacha l'maaseh for Sfaradim. If you forgot, when we're going to start saying Barach Aleinu, if you forget it, and you're in the middle, before Shema Kolenu, then you could simply, in Shema Kolenu, say V'ten tal umatar lebracha. Okay, so it's a good thing you're here. It's a good thing you're here. Because this Braita, we hold like it. If you're before Shema Kolenu, no, the opposite. The opposite. Before Shema Kolenu, you don't go back because you can say the Shema Kolenu. After Shema Kolenu, once you start Ritzeh, now you got to go back to Baruch Elenu. So it's before Ritzeh, you just say it in Shema Kolenu. But once you say Ritzeh, now you got to go back to there. And if you finish the whole thing, you got to go back to the beginning. So you see here, this is what the question of the Gemara was. During the winter months, I want to say Havinenu, my abridged version. But I can't say it because I don't know what to do with this phrase. So we said, why don't you just stick it in the middle where it belongs? We said, no, you're going to get confused. Fine. So say it at the end because you know it fits in Shema Kolenu. We said, that's if you forgot. You can't establish your Saturday night prayer to always say V'ten Tel Matar at the end. That's not how it's established. So Saturday nights, you avoid saying Havinenu altogether. Okay? Good. Now, let's keep going. One more thing. When we're discussing this, where's my Zoom share screen? I see a lot of people join the Zoom. Shalom Aleichem, everyone. Let's just finish up here. Gufa, we're going to re-quote this. There's three things that if you forget, we're going to talk about what to do. Look at this Braita. Gufa, Amar Rabbi Yasser tells us, if you made a mistake and you did not mention Mashiva Ruach in the Bracha V'ata Gibor, you got to go back, as we spoke about. If you miss 10 Talamatel Bracha and Machzirinoto, you don't need to go back. Why? Because you could say it when you say Shomei Tefillah, as we just said. And if you forget Havdalah Chonadat and Machzirinoto, you do not need to go back. Why? Because you could say it with a cup of wine. Well, we have a contradiction to this. What's the contradiction? It's going to focus on V'ten Tel Matar. Pay close attention. Elon, you already started speaking about this. Today we learned in a Braita that says the following. If you did not mention Mashiva Ruach in Ata Gibor, Machzirinato, you got to go back. So far, so good. We already said that. If you forget V'ten Tel Matar in the Bracha Berkat Hashanim, Machzirinato, you got to go back. That's different from what we said. What did we say a moment ago? You don't have to go back. Why? Because you could say it in Shomei Tefillah. But this Braita says you got to go back. So which one is it? And if you miss Havdalah and Chonen Adat and Machzirinoto, you don't need to go back. Because you could say it on the cup of wine. So if I forget the 10 Talmud Matal Bracha in the Bracha Berkat Hashanim, Rabbi Yasser tells us, it's Rabbi Yasser, right? That's his name. Rabbi Yasser tells us you don't need to go back because you can say it in Shabbat Kolenu, but the Braita says you need to go back. So what is it? The Gemara answers Lo Kasha. There's no contradiction here. Ha bi'achid, ha b'tzibur. It depends if you're an individual or if you're in a minyan. B'tzibur ma'tamalo. If you're in a minyan, you don't need to go back. Why not? Mishum d'shama mishaliach tzibur. Because you're going to hear the chazan say it the second time, so you don't need to go back. The Gemara says, hold on. I don't need to go back because I hear from the chazan. He told me I don't need to go back because I could say it in Shema Kolenu. He said why I don't need to go back. Has nothing to do with the minyan. I don't need to go back because I could catch it in Shema Kolenu. Why are you telling me I don't need to go back because I'm in a minyan and I could hear the chazan? Ihachi, if that's the case, the phrase, quote, the fact that I could say it in the final bracha of Shomei Tefillah, that I could catch myself later, it should have said, it should have said, because you could hear the chazan say it again. So, Rabbi Yasser tells us, if you miss V'ten Tel Matar, you don't need to go back. But the Braita says you need to go back. The Gemara says, you know what the difference is? If you're in a minyan, you don't need to go back because you could hear again. That works, except he told us why you don't need to go back. It has nothing to do with minyan. It says, because you could say it in the Bracha of Shabbat Kolenu. So the Gemara says, Ela idi v'idi b'yachid. Both of them are talking about as an individual. V'lo kashya, it's not a contradiction. Ha de'idkar kodem shomei tefillah. Ha de'idkar batar shomei tefillah. It depends when you caught yourself. If you caught yourself before Shema Kolenu, you don't need to go back because in the Shema Kolenu you can say V'ten Tel Matar. But if you caught yourself after Shema Kolenu, you got to go back to Barech Aleinu, or if you finish the whole Amidah, you got to go back to the beginning. So if I go back to my Sidur, here's what happened. I'm praying, starting December 5th. It's going to be in exactly a month from now, and I'm saying Barachenu. Right now I'm saying Barachenu, but it comes to Barech Aleinu, and I miss it. I miss Barech Aleinu, and I keep going. and now all of a sudden, Al Tzadikim, I remember. Do I need to go back? No. Why not? Because when I get up to Shema Kolenu, I could say the phrase. What's the phrase? Everyone, I want to hear everyone say it. What's the phrase that I can say in Shema Kolenu? V'ten tal umatar lebracha. I could say that in Shema Kolenu. You don't need to say the whole bracha. You just got to say these 4 words. V'ten tal umatar lebracha. I'm giving you halacha l'maaseh. This is the rule. But let's say I only remembered when I'm in the middle of Retzeh or I'm in the middle of Modim. What am I supposed to do? Now I need to go back. That's why Rabbi Yeshua says, you don't need to go back. Just say it in Shema Kolenu. And the Berachot says, you need to go back. It depends when you cut yourself. So with that, we have just turned to 29B. So if you're still in the Amidah, you can go back to Berachot Havinenu. If you finish the Amidah, you got to go back and do the whole thing all over again. Excellent question. What happens if during the summer months I'm requesting rain? Anyone know the answer? Okay, so during the winter months, if you don't request rain, you need to go back. If you catch yourself before Shema Kolenu, you don't need to go back because you could request rain in Shema Kolenu. But winter months, if I don't, I need to go back. Summer months, if I do request rain, what do I have to go back? You don't think so. You would think so. Is there a third answer, or it's just yes or no? There's got to be a third answer. Depends what. Okay, no. So here's the answer. The answer is rain during the summer is a siman kilala. It's a curse. Therefore, if someone requests rain during the summer months, they have to go back. They have to go back. Requesting rain during the summer months is a curse. Does anyone know, just in the spirit of learning some Navi, because we already did some of it, there's a story in the Navi that tells us, that shows us that rain during the summer months is a curse. Does anyone know the story? No. I have my question first. So the answer is, we already did the story tonight with Shmuel HaNavi. Who was Shmuel HaNavi? The son of Chana, remember? So here's what happens. Shmuel is the prophet of the Jewish people when they don't have a king. And the people came to him and they said, we want a king, we want a king, we want a king. Shmuel understood that this is actually a bad thing. Why was it a bad thing? Because they were ready to replace the prophet, the Navi, for a king, almost like replacing religion with politics. They were ready for a political position instead of having a rabbinical position. So Shmuel HaNavi responded to them, you want a king, you're going to get a king. We'll give you a king. But you should know that Hashem is not happy. And you know how I'm going to prove it to you Hashem is not happy? Halo kitzir chitim hayom. Isn't it summertime? Go look what the weather is going to be. And then all of a sudden it starts raining. And so that's how, when he says these words of, isn't it summertime? And it starts raining, that means it's a sign of a curse. And that's what the Talmud tells us, that if someone, as Richard, your question is, if you're requesting rain during the summer months, you got to go back because you're actually requesting something that's improper. During that time of year, it's improper. What ended up happening? He gave us the king of Shaul HaMelech, and Shaul HaMelech was an excellent king until the end with Melech Agag, where Hashem was upset and actually stripped the Melucha away from him and gave it to David HaMelech. Question?
That scenario where you said it accident. No, I didn't really mean to ask that. So I was thinking so bad for something that wasn't like.
Good question. Good question. You know, there's it's a good question. Okay, our words during the Amidah matter, and if you're saying words that are not proper, it's not correct. You have to go back and fix it. Yeah, our words matter, and if you're going to say words that is almost like a curse, that is not appropriate. We don't just say, it's okay. It's a good thing you prayed. No, you got to say the right things. You said the wrong thing. It's not the right season. You're going to go back and you're going to say the tefillah again.
You realize the middle that you said, you like stop your Amidah and just start again at the beginning, or
So say it again.
say,
Oh, if you said the wrong thing, where do you go back to? Good question. Can you go back to Barachin, or do you have to go back to the beginning? I don't remember. I don't remember if you have to go back all the way to the beginning. I think you might have to go back If you bring the kolot Havinenu sidur, he writes in there what to do. If you want to go bring one, Daniel, can you see if you could find a kolot Havinenu sidur from here? Do you know which one I mean? Like the red one or the blue one, or one of those? You have the app? Okay, no, never mind. He has the app. Pull up the app. Go to see what does he say happens if you say Barech Aleinu during the summer months. Okay?
Just go to the Amidah.
Yeah, to Barech Aleinu. Look at his footnotes.
Turn to Berachot.
Okay, so you should continue to Barachenu and continue. Not that one, no.
In summer, if one said Barachot instead of Barachot and has not yet reached the end of the Amidah, you should return to Barachot and continue.
Okay, if he has not yet reached the end of the Amidah, go back to Barachenu. Good.
But if one has finished the Amidah, you must return to the beginning and start over.
Okay, if you finished, you go back to the beginning. Why? Because you asked for rain during the summer months, and that's not appropriate. Therefore, you have to go back to the beginning. Okay, so we learned a lot tonight. Baruch Hashem, we're learning about the Berachot Havinenu, and once we're learning about the Berachot Havinenu, we're discussing all of these Berachot of if you forgot something. Next class, we're going to talk about what happens if you forget Ya'aleh v'yavo on Rosh Chodesh. That's going to be the next one, and hopefully we'll talk about that because next week is Rosh Chodesh. So it's actually good timing. Next week, when is Rosh Chodesh? It's Thursday night? I think it's Thursday night. So Be'ezrat Hashem, we'll get you ready for the fact that you're going to forget it 2 days later. I'm joking. Hopefully you don't forget it. There's a joke, and I'll probably say it next week also. I forgot who the rabbis were with. It's a famous story. But one rabbi asks another rabbi and says, what's the rule if you forget to say Ya'aleh v'yavo on Rosh Chodesh? And then he basically answers him in a way of saying, this question is not a valid question for me, and it's not a valid question for you. Well, what do you mean? It's not a valid question for me because I don't forget it. I pay attention and I get it right the first time. And it's not a valid question for you because even if you forget it the first time, you're going to forget the second time also. So you might don't say it anyway. Because you're going to forget even if you forget it the first time, the second time. Okay, anyway. In good health, Be'ezrat Hashem, we'll pick up next week with the laws of Ya'aleh v'yavo. Azak Baruch, everyone. Have a good night.